There you go.
Okay, great.
Hey, everybody, this is so exciting. Welcome aboard. You're joining me, Terry Real, the founder of Relational Life Therapy. And we've got, over 11,000 of you from all over the world. This is truly exciting. Normally, I would go into chat and just start saying hi to everybody, but let's not take the time. We've only got 90 minutes, and what that means is about 55 minutes with me, 5 minutes with our wonderful tech, Will, who will tell you a little bit about the course that this is a intro to. And then 30 minutes of Q&A from you. And we've got a lot to cover. So let's get right to it. Narcissism, grandiosity. Can you treat a narcissist? Can a narcissist change? Well, I'm sad to say, and I really do mean this, the current conventional wisdom seems to be no, you can't, or it just takes years and a hell of a lot if it works at all. Being in a so-called narcissistic relationship, which has come to signify an abusive relationship, is kind of the new victimhood these days. There are all sorts of support groups for being in so-called narcissistic relationships. It's synonymous with being gaslit, and all of which is true to a degree, but the advice that's almost always given to partners of so-called narcissists is get out. They're not going to change. And as a couples therapist, that just makes me nuts. Or as we say in RLD, I make myself nuts based on that stimulus. But nevertheless, this is a good example of what we in RLT call the difference between individual empowerment and relational empowerment. As a couples therapist, I often say the bane of my existence is often individual therapists who will empower the individual they're working with right out of potentially workable relationships. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take that anymore. Well, great, but I'm sitting with the partner that's being complained about, and let me tell you, they're not as hopeless as you may think they are. Based on your individual client's report of them. Now, this is endemic to the field. I've written a whole book, as most of you know, Us, which critiques the toxic culture of individualism. And I think the field of psychotherapy it very much is part of the anti-relational, individualistic bias of our culture. Can narcissists change? Yes. In RLT, we change narcissistic people for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and we do a pretty damn good job of it, thank you very much, but not by using traditional one-on-one transference-based therapy. Can narcissists change? I would prefer my brethren, clinicians, to say, we haven't found a way to change them, rather than say they're unchangeable, because we have found ways of changing. Not all of them, by no means. I don't want to be grandiose in our claims, but quite effectively, but we're different. So here are some things to understand about the nature of grandiosity. First of all, narcissism occurs along a spectrum. By the way, before I launch into that, for those of you who are going to join us in our course, our exploration, as I hope all of you do, you'll be talking to me. And also, Will, could I have a slide on Bonnie? One of our senior faculty members a beloved faculty, Bonnie Slim. There you go. We'll go over this in detail, but I will be doing, I think, 5 courses on treating grandiosity and narcissism. And Bonnie will be doing separate Q&A classes. There'll be Q&A in my class as well, but this will be dedicated hour or maybe 90 minutes, just Q&A on whatever you want. So Bonnie's a real treat, and I want to welcome her aboard. So back to narcissism. Look, first of all, it's along a spectrum. In psychoanalytic work, we talk about healthy narcissism. And when you're dealing with a one-down, quote-unquote, codependent, you want to move them up into healthy self-esteem. And then there are people with some narcissistic traits, like me, for example. I know that narcissists can go into recovery because I am one. My family likes to call me a narso in recovery, and that's on a good day. So there are people with narcissistic traits who can learn how to move beyond them. That's our meat and potatoes. Then there are people with narcissistic personalities, but that's not necessarily virulent or unchangeable. And by the way, here's a little distinction that I make that may be useful for some of you. I talk about 3 different types of narcissistic personalities. There's a narcissist proper. I'm tired of talking about me. Why don't you talk about me? It's just me, 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 me. I don't want to put my foot in it, so forgive me if this offends some of you, but Donald Trump is a sort of classic narcissist proper. What's this going to do for me? Then there's a narcissist with a hysterical personality style, a hysterical narcissist. People don't like that word because of its sexist roots, but it's a perfectly fine psychiatric description of a character type. Hysterical folks are warm, charming, seductive. Bill Clinton is a classic hysterical type narcissist, warm, seductive. I'm a hysterical type narcissist. And then there's obsessive compulsive style narcissists, and they're tough to live with. This is often a guy, and it's like, if you love me, you would line the shoes up right. How come dinner isn't on the table? It's about order and my will, and very, very controlling. So that's an interesting little distinction that I found clinically. At any rate, there are narcissistic personalities. That's their style. But already, even that is not sort of hopeless. And then there are NPDs, narcissistic personality disorders. I'm fond of saying a diagnosis of a personality disorder usually means your therapist doesn't like you very much. The difference between a personality disorder and a personality style is insight. People with personality disorders don't see themselves as the problem. They see others as the problem, and they have very little insight. So they're harder to work with. But narcissism is like that in general. And then there are now malignant, so-called malignant narcissists, who are more of sort of a combo of narcissist and sociopath. And they are very, very difficult to treat. But because of the popularity of this idea of being in a narcissistic relationship, a lot of people read their partner as malignant narcissists when they're really talking about somebody with narcissistic traits, or maybe even a narcissistic personality style, which is very, very treatable, but you have to know how. So let me say, working with grandiosity as well as shame, I see as one of the great contributions of relational life therapy for well over 50 years. Self-help psychotherapy has helped people come up from the one down of shame, but we've done a terrible job of helping people come down from the one up of superiority, entitlement, contempt. And if you're going to do couples work, and also if you're going to work with men, you have to know how to do both. And psychotherapy has done a terrible job at equipping us to learn how to do that. So that's what this course is going to be about. How to enlist the best part of a person, form a true working alliance with them to help them come down from the what I call the other self-esteem disorder, the one up of looking down your nose at somebody, being above the rules, being entitled, being contemptuous. And I prefer, rather than calling somebody a narcissist, to speak of them as selfish. Somehow, curing somebody of their selfishness seems a lot easier to me than a fancy psychiatric diagnosis. So what most people call narcissism, I call grandiosity and selfishness. So let's talk about some of the characteristics and distinguish it from shame. If you're in a one-down shame state, you know it. You feel bad about it, and you want to get out of it. One of the devilish things about grandiosity is it impairs judgment, and it feels good. Shame feels bad. Grandiosity feels good. This is the first open secret that we have to deal with. It feels good in the moment to lose your constraint and rage at somebody. It feels good to be arrogant and know better than everybody else. It feels good to act out. It feels good to get intoxicated. From an RLT perspective, we see intoxication as a form of grandiosity. Grandiosity feels good. When I teach this, think about mania in bipolar disorder. Mania is sort of nature's crack grandiosity, and bipolar folks will tell you quite movingly. Renfield, I think I got her name right, An Unquiet Mind. Yale psychiatrist, specialist in bipolar disorder, bipolar herself, writes incredibly movingly in her book, as I am sitting here, knowing full well the consequences, a big part of me wants to get off my medication and get manic because it just feels so good. And I feel so constrained and being cut off from that state. Grandiosity feels good. It will ruin your life. You have to think your way down from grandiosity. It demands some insight, which is difficult. Because grandiosity impairs insight. Specifically, grandiosity impairs empathy. The more grandiose someone is, the less empathic they are. And it impairs your assessment of negative consequences. Again, think about mania. We have to put people in a full-blown manic episode locked away because they'll hurl themselves off a roof thinking they can fly, etc. So it impairs judgment. Empathy, negative consequences. Why doesn't traditional therapy work with a narcissist, grandiose person? Because you can nurture a grandiose person till you're blue in the face. That's not what's deficient. What's deficient is empathy to others. What's deficient is a realistic assessment of consequences. So in RLT, we explicitly supply what's deficient. We're empathic to you, of course. That's the basis. That's the sine qua non. That, of course, we have to be empathically connected to you or you won't listen to us. But within that connection, we expand your empathy to the people around you, and we wake you up to the negative consequences that you may face. That's how we form an alliance with you. The great Boston psychiatrist George Valiant said, this is back in the day when people smoked in public, there are two kinds of people in the world. There's a guy who walks into an elevator, gets claustrophobic, and turns green. There's a guy who walks into an elevator, lights a big fat stogie, and everybody around them turns green. That's the difference between shame and grandiosity. Shame-based people have pain. Grandiose-based people are not in pain. The people around them are in pain. Grandiose-based people have trouble. The conflict is rarely intrapsychic. The conflict is interpersonal. It may become intrapsychic when the person wakes up and says, oh my God, I'm having trouble with this one, that one, and the other one. But they rarely come to you and go, I've got a real problem with my selfishness and narcissism. They come to you and say, hey, my partner's about to throw me out, or I've got this terrible 360 at work, or it's about feedback from their environment. The problem when you're dealing with a grandiose-based person is the other people in the elevator. They start choking and coughing, and the grandiose person says, hey, what is it with you wimps? This is not a cheap cigar. This is a Havana. I paid $50 for no. Very little. The more grandiose and narcissistic you are, the less intrapsychic conflict and insight you have, and the more almost perplexed you are that so many people are unhappy with you. So here's the first order of business. Ready? You want to treat a grandiose person? You want to treat a narcissist? Bring in the other people in the elevator. Don't try and treat a grandiose narcissistic person in one-on-one therapy. Bring in the partner, and if need be, the kids to supply the data you need and the leverage you need. And that's the other thing that distinguishes RLT. Look, what we fear as therapists, we are taught by and large as therapists to treat grandiose narcissistic people with kid gloves. First you win their trust, and then maybe you squeak out a few confrontations about their difficult behaviors, maybe a year or two into forget it. In RLT, we form a trusting relationship with the grandiose narcissistic person by confronting their difficult behaviors right out of the starting gate. But there's an art to that. I'll get to that. But before we do that, we have to have some sort of contract, some reason for. I like to say to my students, when you're sitting with a grandiose or narcissistic client, you have to have an answer to the question they're asking themselves, which is, why should I put up with you? And the answer to that we call leverage, L-E-V-E-R-A-G-E, leverage, which is just a sort of whatever word for motivation, how to motivate the person. And we speak of positive and negative leverage. Why should I put up with you? Because I have in my back pocket something you want, a happier, sexier partner, for example. And I stand between you and something you don't want, negative consequences. Play ball with me, or this is what's going to happen to you. So we routinely bring in the system, partner, and sometimes kids. And our first move is to empower the partner. Let me say that again. In RLT, we say we want the mighty to melt, we want the weak to stand up. So we'll do it a classic heterosexual Mrs. Partner of narcissist. What is going to happen if this doesn't change? And of course, the big bet is, I'm going to leave the son of a gun. Okay, when? Do you have a plan? And then, Mr. Narcissist, do you believe her? And no, she said this before. Well, he doesn't believe you. Is this different? So we put some teeth into that consequence. But it may not be, I'm going to leave you. It could just be, I'm going to be happy. One of the things we say to we call it the latent, the enabling partner, is a lot of people in general, and women in particular, get into, I hate how you're treating me, what can I make you for dinner? And the first order of business is, why don't you be congruent with what you really feel? And so there's a whole range of behaviors that the one down partner can engage in to throw a little weight into things. Everything from just stop acting like you're happy when you're not, all the way up. There's a ladder that we'll go through in the class of withdrawal. I'm not doing your laundry. I'm not cooking your meals. I'm not going out socially with you. That's a big one. I don't feel like a couple. I'm not going to pretend that we're a couple. I'm not going to have sex with you, but explicitly, not passive aggressively. To where you're moving to a new bedroom, to we're having an in-house divorce. There's a whole range that comes before I'm going to pack a bag, but you have to face the latent fears. The minute they stand up to their grandiose partner, they put the marriage at risk, and we understand that. So first we work with the one down one. We also take sides. RLT is unique in that. We throw our weight behind the one down one to put some teeth into the consequences, if there are any, and then use that as leverage to convince the one up one to come down and play ball with us. Hey, listen, do you believe that she's really going to, you might lose her this time? I don't know. Like, can I tell you something, Frank? I think you should take her seriously. If I were you, do you want to lose her? Do you care? That's leverage. And then there's positive leverage. Sticking again with the man, Frank, what kind of father did you have? What kind of father do you want to be? What's the legacy that you want to pass on to your kids? Will you let me help you? So carrot and stick as a way of helping the person agree to submit to let you help them. But within the context of the relationship, do this one-on-one and you've got 5 more years ahead of you. Bring in the system and you've got a few months. People can change. And people can change. We believe that character can change. I say I'm in the personality transplant business. And the way that this works is by teaching people how to live relational lives. Relational life therapy is the name of the game. And this is particularly true for heterosexual men. In my first book, I said the way that under patriarchy we quote unquote turn boys into men is through disconnection. We teach them to disconnect from their hearts, from vulnerability, from others. We call that being independent, certainly from their mothers. And the cost of disconnection in boyhood is a disconnected adult. Somebody said RLT deconstructs patriarchy one couple at a time. And the essence of traditional masculinity under patriarchy is invulnerability. The more invulnerable you are, the more manly you are. The more vulnerable you are, the more girly you are, and that's not a good thing. A lot of what we call narcissism is traditional masculinity. Men aren't taught to be relational. Men are taught to be warriors and to be rather selfish. myself included. I say to the guys I work with, relationality is my second language. Selfishness is my first language. I'm pretty fluent at it. I've been speaking it for decades, but I grew up in a family where the women served and did the dishes while the men sat around and smoked cigars and sit and talk politics. I grew up with that entitlement. So learning to be relational is a learning. And it's a learning for women as well, which we'll get to. Men in our culture, this is a broad generality, I own it, but generally speaking, men in our culture tend to lead from the one-up grandiose position and have covert shame. Women tend to lead from the one-down victim enabling position and have covert grandiosity. And talking about women's grandiosity and how that may be different from men is a very interesting topic that I hope we can get into. So what's missing for someone who's in the one-up entitled grandiose position is empathy and correct assessment of consequences. Think about an adolescent boy driving down a country road. They just don't get how much danger they're in driving 80 miles an hour. They just don't get it. So we have to wake them up. And the way we do that, once we have leverage, is what we call joining through the truth. Telling the person what they're doing that's blowing their own foot off, but doing it so skillfully, so lovingly, so empathically, so on their side, that they actually feel closer to you when you confront the difficult truth than they did if you were to just sit there and hold their hand endlessly. We call this the art of joining through the truth, and it is a central pillar of RLT. To understand joining through the truth, you have to understand that we see the psyche in a three-part system. There is the wise adult part of us, prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of us. There's the wounded child part of us, very young, amygdala, first moments of life up to about 4 or 5, all just reaction, feeling it all, just flooded. And then there's what we call the adaptive child part of us, which is what most of the clients I see have lived most of their lives in. That's where grandiosity and narcissism sits. It's how you learned to cope with what was coming at you. And the grandiosity as a coping mechanism is quite common. It's quite common that people fly into the one-up as a defense or an escape from the one-down shame state that they're in, but not always. And this is another real difference from RLT and traditional therapy. I like to say there are two groups that believe that underneath every bullying narcissist is a wounded little boy or girl. And that if you just love up that wounded little person, the grandiosity will sort of just fly away. Trauma work alone will deal with grandiosity. Those two groups are codependent women and psychotherapists. It ain't true. Research tells us that about 50% of narcissists have underlying issues of shame. The other 50% just think they're better than you and me. And one of my great mentors, the fabulous Pia Mellody, P-I-A-M-E-L-L-O-D-Y, helped me unlock this with her concept of false empowerment. False empowerment. When we think of trauma, we think of disempowering abuse, transactions that make a child feel small, worthless, unlovable. But you can also pump a child up, or just through neglect, not lean into their natural tendency toward narcissism and selfishness and civilize little beings. False empowerment is either neglecting to set appropriate limits on a child and or actively pumping up their sense of specialness. I'm a baby boomer, a whole generation of us reacting to our shaming parents tended toward false empowerment. My now 37-year-old, who was very funny, went to a little, private hothouse school when he was young and said, at Shady Hill, you never lose, you just win differently. Look, Ma, I came in last. Here's my trophy. No. False empowerment, disempowerment leads to issues of shame. False empowerment leads to issues of grandiosity. We look for a history of false empowerment just as much as we look for a history of disempowerment and shame. I often say, what's the most destructive phrase in the English language? Honey, you understand me better than your father does. Honey, you understand me better than your father does. That is not a gift to a little boy. It is a great toxic burden. So grandiosity can be an escape from shame, and it can be a straight shot of entitlement. When we work with that grandiose adaptive child part of you, we ask these questions. Who did you see do this? And or who did it to you? And this is an interesting one. Who did you do it to and no one stopped you? That's false empowerment. I dealt with a guy in his late 40s, a fabulously successful doctor. He raged. And he came to me after he literally physically destroyed his own office in a fit of rage, started throwing furniture through the window and figured he needed some help. I said, who was the rager in your family? No one. Who raged at you? No one. Who did you rage at and no one stopped you? Yeah, well, I've been having temper tantrums since I've been 4 years old. Well, what did your parents do when you had temper tantrums? He yelled, screamed, threw things, same things he's doing now. What did they do? Well, to be honest, mostly they gave me what I wanted. Well, that's why you're 45 and you're still doing it. Now, I have to install in you some of the limits that you deserve to have installed in you when you were 4 years old. Poor you. And understanding false empowerment as a form of trauma, I think is a beautiful way of being able to hold a grandiose narcissistic person with empathy and accountability at the same time. I call this, oh, you poor perpetrator. You were set up to. You didn't ask for this entitlement. It was a visitation on you. And we speak of this as joining through the truth, telling the truth to grandiose narcissistic people in a way that loves them, this empathic, because it's not the best of them, it's their adaptive child. Over and over again, I will end a first session, like many RLT therapists, with something like this. Bill, who's been a lying, cheating philanderer for 20 years, you're a decent guy. I've been with indecent men. We call them sociopaths, and man, they're cold, but you're warm. And when I speak to you, you nod, you laugh at my joke. I feel connected. You know what's so sad, Bill? I am talking to a decent man who's behaved indecently for the last 20 years. Now your kids hate you. Your wife's about to leave you. You got to feel like shit about yourself at some level. But will you let me help you rescue the real you from this crap you've been in? Who's going to say no to that? And they don't. I am forming an alliance with the wise adult part of Bill to deal with that pesky adaptive child that he developed as a child, either defensively to cope with shame, or straight up through modeling an entitled parent, or being told that he was God's gift. I have a friend, an artist, who knows that he has issues with grandiosity and narcissism, and he told me a story about when he was about 12. He and his mom went to a Picasso exhibit, and when they came out, the mom said, "You're better than this guy." I don't know. That is not a favor. That is an invitation to grandiosity. So joining through the truth is you and me, the best part of you, looking together at that troublesome, grandiose part of you. I'm connected to you. You know, Pia taught me that a real intimacy, which is spiritual and healing, is the conjunction of truth and love. And RLT is about the conjunction of truth and love. And most therapy is loving but not as truthful as it needs to be. And then there's some therapies that are confrontational and truthful but not as loving as they need to be. So the art of dealing with grandiose narcissistic people is loving them and being truthful at the same time. I call this therapeutic self-esteem in action. Healthy self-esteem, which we have to teach people, it means that you feel proportionately bad, appropriately bad about your bad behavior, and still hold yourself in warm regard as a flawed person just like the rest of us. You don't move into shame. That's the difference between guilt and shame. You don't beat the hell out of yourself as a bad person. You're a good person who behaved badly. You're a good person who may even have some not great traits or beliefs. But you still hold yourself in warm regard while at the same time feeling appropriate pain about your imperfections. If you don't feel appropriate pain, you're shameless. That's grandiosity. That's what keeps us from being offensive is feeling remorse and pain about our bad behavior. We want that. That's like physical pain. We want that. On the other hand, shame is I'm a shitty person. I should go hide. And when we confront grandiose people, another great fear is that they will move from inflation to deflation, from shameless to shame, and we work with that. I'll teach you how to help somebody come up out of shame into remorse, out of self-preoccupation into repair and amends to the person they hurt. But first, the loving confrontation. Let me show you what you're doing. Let me cast a very cool eye on your behavior while holding you in love at the same time. And you're clear as a bell about their difficult behavior. And then when you get a little more sophisticated about it, you are joining the wise adult prefrontal cortex part of the person to deal with that grandiose or selfish adaptation that they evolved as a kid. You didn't ask for this. I often tell this story. My two boys are now 37 and 35, but when my eldest, Justin, was young, being ADHD a challenge, like both his mom and dad, and coming from Boston, he had a play date at about 3-4 years old. And the play date living in Boston sounded something like this. Do you want to play hockey? You want to play hockey? How about hockey? Want to throw a puck around? Want to get a couple of sticks and go out? Want to go out and play hockey? The kid left. Justin comes bounding over to me, kind of like Tigger, and says, "Do you think he had a good time?" And I said, "No." And my little 4-year-old son was stunned. I said, "Listen, honey, I'm going to teach you something. It's important. Listen, if you want to do exactly what you want to do, be alone. The minute you invite somebody into your world, you have to at least pay some attention to what they want to do." And my little 4-year-old, true story, looks up at me and goes, "Too much hockey?" Okay, here's the second part of the story that I often tell. Chris comes to me, as most of the clients I see, on the brink of divorce. He takes his wife on an R&R long weekend to the Bahamas. And the weekend sounds something like this. Hey, do you want to have sex? You want to be intimate? Want to get physical? Do you want to get close? Want to be romantic? How about some sex? And I asked Mrs. Bill if she had a great time, and she says no. And Bill is stunned. What I do is absolutely a true story. What's my intervention? I tell Bill the Justin story. This is true. And I said to him, there's a word for what I was doing with my 4-year-old son. It's called parenting. Not fathering, parenting. It's what you deserved and did not get. And so now in your 40s, on the brink of divorce, you have to schlep to Boston, pay me an arm and a leg, and I will install a sensitivity chip in you that you deserved to have installed as a little boy. You did not ask for this. But if I have anything to say about it, we're damn well going to deal with it. Sign me up. I speak about remedial empathy. This is a practice you'll learn in class. Before you open your mouth, ask yourself, what is this going to feel like to the person who is going to listen to what I'm about to say? Stop and think. Wise adult. Stop and think. Learning to be relational. Learning to be relational is the antidote to grandiosity and narcissism. Connection is the antidote to being one-up, demanding, angry when your demands aren't met, etc. And learning to be relational is what we do to virtually everybody. I'm not thrown by access to a diagnosis. I don't care what your diagnosis is. I only care if you're interested in doing the work or not. If you're interested in doing the work, I can teach you how to live a more relational life. And that's our ace in the hole. RLT is known for producing deep, dramatic, permanent change quickly. How do we do that? By placing somebody in the jet stream of relational connection. Being truly connected, as everybody listening to me right now knows, is what we're designed to be as a species. There's more and more research about this. Not being connected is as bad for us physically as a pack and a half of cigarettes a day. New research. This is what we're born for. Young infants in the first weeks of life turn to connection. Our bodies work. You'll live longer. That's positive leverage. You'll live longer if you master the art of intimate connection. And it will give you joy. Many of the adaptive children that I see in my office have lived most of their lives based on gratification. And in RLT, we make a distinction between gratification and what we call relational joy. Gratification is a short-term hit of pleasure. It's great. Love it. You know, somebody flirts with you, you get an award, you do well in the stock market, your kid gets an A. Great. great in its place. Relational joy is a deeper down pleasure that is not about being gratified or being thwarted. It's about just the pleasure of being in the state of connection itself. I often give parenting is an example. When my other son, Alexander, the little one, was a terror, and I was giving him a timeout. He was little, you know, and there were no locks in the bedroom doors, so I was holding the door closed, and this little kid was trying to wrest it open, and I like to say it was like polter. I mean, there were like lightning was coming out of the bed. The whole house was shaking. And a part of me hated him. I talk about normal parental hatred. I'm one of those films for the win. A deeper part of me was like, God, you mighty little spirit, you're going to do okay in this world. And I just loved him so much. I mean, we understand relational joy, most of us as parents. Sometimes your kids are gratifying, sometimes they're a torment. But the deeper pleasure has nothing to do with that. It's just being there. Being in a state of authentic connection is pleasurable. It feels healthy. It is the source of our real joy. What we self-medicate, I believe, is the pain of not being in a state of healthy connection. And when we teach people to come down from that one up, just like when we teach people to come up from the one down, and enter into a state of healthy self-esteem and healthy connectedness, it's just so much better feeling that they want more. It self-reinforces, and people leave the adaptations behind. Not without a fight and not without practice and not without your support, but they leave the adaptation and the selfishness behind and move into connectedness, relationality, loving and being loved. And it's so much better. In RLT, we judiciously disclose we're not experts. We're on the same journey you are, and I'll say to somebody, I used to be you. I used to live for workaholism and awards and flirting and self-medication, and that's all gone. That's all gone. I mean, a healthy relationship between me and me, the first order of business when you're working with somebody with narcissistic and grandiose issues. I'm in a good relationship between me and me. I'm in a good relationship between me and those who love me. I'm in a good relationship with the world. This feels better than that, my dear friend. And if I can do it, so can you. That's how we do it. Listen, let me open up first for Will to describe the course where we're going to teach you not just how to think about this differently, but actually how to do it. And then I want to open up for questions. But first, thank you, Will, for your support. And
Yeah, great, Terry. And I want to let you know before I get into those details, we have some amazing questions in the chat. Some are so thoughtful, so deep. So I'm hoping once we get to the question time, you could speak first a little bit more to, and you'll forgive me, there are three fears that the therapist has. One, that the client will melt, the other, that they'll run away, and I forget the third, but many of the questions really relate to that and preconditions such as violence, alcoholism. So I'm just prepping you now so you can get that ready, and I'll go through these slides.
yeah, you don't remember the third course in my ADD lecture. I don't think I got to it, but we will. Thank you, Will.
Okay. So everyone, we will have time for questions in about 5 minutes. And for that, we'll get you to raise your hand. I'll promote you to panelist and bring you on live for a question with Terry. But first, I want to give you, of course, the link where you can register for the program. And so one of my staff, Griselda, is going to put this link directly in the chat, so you can click on it right there and go and sign up for the course. Here are the dates. So if you want to pencil those into your calendar quickly, you can. Once you register, you get a calendar link that imports them all directly to your calendar to make it easy. But we have 5 full classes, 90-minute classes, where Terry's going to dive into all the topic, and he will have time for some Q&A in his calls. And we also have Bonnie, as we mentioned, who's going to be doing 3 full Q&A calls. So these are not extra content. This is Bonnie taking time with as many people as she has time for those one-on-one questions. And as I can see from the chat, everyone has many, many unique scenarios that they want to apply this material to. So I think Bonnie's going to have her hands full during that time. So one thing I wanted to speak a little bit more about is if you're a therapist, and you may be as myself, you may be a regular person here and not a therapist or a coach. But if you are, I just want you to take a moment and think about what would be or what could be the difference that this kind of skill development could make in your practice. What clients maybe you're not working with now because of that lack of skill or the increased skill that you could have, and what is the increased impact that you could have with the clients you're already working with. I have found with all the people that we work with in the Institute and all the courses, I hear just over and over again, learning to deal with grandiosity is that difference maker. So I'd love to see you in the course so you can get access to these skills. And as a fun little thing, this is the last time Terry's going to teach this live. So I've had a few questions in the chat, and a number of them are on the topics of, hey, Terry did the course Working with Men, and what about the other course on grandiosity, is his audio only course. And I'll say, Terry's learned a lot since then. All of those courses were at least 3, if not 5, if not 7 years old. He's learned a lot. He's refined the model even more. So it's the last time you get him live. So I'd encourage you to jump in now. So what you get with the purchase is the live calls with Terry, Q&A calls, and access to our community platform. And in there, you can ask more questions, engage with the community, work out the material with the people that you're in the course with, and bring all those questions to Terry and to Bonnie in the Q&A calls. So there again is the link. You can either register for one payment of $4.95, or if you need 2 payments of $175. And there's more information on that on the sales page as well. So I encourage you to go to relationallife.com/grandiosity. And hopefully my Griselda's put that in the chat as well, and you'll have the link right there. Great. Terry, did I miss anything? Any logistical things you want to add?
Ginzu knives, the gift certificate. No, everything's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Will. Thank you for all that. Let's see. Maybe is there a way for people to ask you questions about the course as opposed to questions about the content?
We can have that. So in the Q&A, everyone, if you have questions directly related to the course itself, so what we're offering in the course, please add that to the Q&A, and Griselda can keep an eye open for those questions that are different from the content questions. So things such as, is this course the same as level 1? Nope, this is a completely different course. In level 1, we touch on aspects of we very much touch on aspects of working with grandiosity, but this course is a deep dive specifically on that. Yes, this is being recorded, and all those classes are recorded as well as the Q&A, and you have access to those for life. And those are those questions. Where's the link? The link in the chat. Yep. Yeah.
CEUs?
Yes, thank you. There's 7.5 CEUs for the course. And so for that, if you need those CEUs, if you're a licensed therapist, you need to be live at all the classes with Terry. You do not have to be live at the classes with the Q&A calls with Bonnie, but you do have to be live on the ones with Terry.
Okay. And if you're not a therapist or a coach, by the way, let me also say coaches as well as therapists. But if you're not a therapist or a coach, you think you might be interested in this class?
I mean, I would myself personally, I think there would be some space for that. The focus is more for our coaches and therapists, because you're going to be speaking more to how do you work with clients who are grandiose. But I would hope and I would think there's some time for those, the personal questions as well. I do want to put in the caveat, because I saw some of the questions that came in the chat, And some of them are very, very intimate questions, which are beautiful questions. And they're really more appropriate for you to work directly with an RLT therapist or coach. That level of depth is not what we're going to get into on the personal questions in this course.
Okay, good. Thank you. But we will, please go to relationallife.com and look at therapists that are available for you if you're struggling with some of these issues. Okay, so you mentioned there were some really groovy questions in chat.
Yes, there are. So, and for everyone else, I see some hands being raised. If you are raising your hand, I'll get to you shortly. Please only raise your hand if you're ready for me to promote you to panelist, and then I can bring you on camera. But first, before that, Terry, I want to ask also to be responsible. It's a juicy question, but also to be responsible. The threat of violence. One of the questions, and there are many questions like this, how does what you're describing as the strategy for the woman with the male narcissist or grandiose partner, how does that relate to the risk or actual experience of violence?
Okay, so in RLT, you learn this in level 1, and we'll talk about it in the course. We talk about 3 preconditions in order to do the work. The first is untreated psychiatric disorders, ADHD, depression, anxiety, OCD. They don't have to be resolved, but they have to be being dealt with before I can pretend to work on your being more intimate with each other. I will meet with you as a couple, but only to deal with the precondition. That has to come first. The second precondition are serious forms of self-medication, drinking, drugs, gambling, food. They have to be pulled into some level of harm reduction or moderation or sobriety. And the third is acting out, either sexual or aggressive. By and large, we don't treat, there are exceptions, but by and large, we don't treat a couple if there's a third leg of a triangle that's current and operating. Again, some exceptions, but by and large. I can't help the two of you get closer while there's an affair going on, unless you're polyamorous. That's a different ball game. But okay, so that's sexual acting out and aggressive acting out. Verbal abuse we can deal with. Physical abuse is a contraindication for couples therapy. I will not see a couple where there's an actual threat of danger. We'll do it straight up heteronormative. She gets a safety plan and gets support. He goes to a program and deals with his domestic violence. I do not ask people, as we routinely do in RLT, to tell truth to power if it's literally unsafe to do that. That's irresponsible. So the one contraindication for couples therapy in RLT is the threat of actual physical violence. We deal with that as two individuals. That's a contraindication.
Great. Okay, great. Last one before I bring on people live. I get the feeling this man is very sincere. So I wanted to give you the Coles notes of what he wrote. I think it would need to be a live in-person session at some point, so I hope he joins the course. But here's the Coles notes. He says, my wife describes me, after 39 years of marriage, as a narcissistic sociopath, and less damning as a control freak. Yes, I am full of myself in a professional context. I'm 78, still very active in my field, an expert in my field, dozens of related certifications. However, I'm very sentimental, especially when it comes to animals being hurt. That brings me to tears very quickly. Hence, I'm absolutely sure that I'm not at all what she says. What is your opinion or verdict, please?
Well, I don't know. I've never laid eyes on you, so it would be utterly arrogant for me to diagnose you by remote control based on your report of her report, as reported by Will. But I will say this. And Will, maybe we can get to this slide. Rather than thinking of, let's do the grid. Rather than thinking of narcissist versus non-narcissist, One way I describe people that are commonly spoken of that way is that they're selfish and they need to learn how to be more relational. The other is that they are one-up and boundaryless love addicts. We're going to spend a lot of time on this grid. The vertical line, one up, one down in the center, is self-esteem. Health is in the middle. You could have poor self-esteem by being shame-based and one down, or being grandiose-based and one up. Boundaries is the horizontal line. When you put them together, you get four quadrants. What most people think of as this kind of controlling narcissist, I would speak of as somebody who is boundaryless and one up. You can be boundaryless and one down, shame-based and boundaryless, and that's what we call love addicts. Love me, love me, love me. I'll do anything if you love me. Think Marilyn Monroe. You can be one up and boundaryless love addict. Now you have the same vulnerability, dependency on being loved externally to supplement your own shaky sense of self-esteem. So you need that external warm regard. You're dependent on it. But you combine that with entitlement. So if one down love addict sounds like love me, I'll do anything if you love me. One up love addict sounds like get off your ass, get over here and love me now. Is controlling and entitled and demanding, and when that doesn't work, it's angry. This is where abuse lives, and this is where control lives. And this is the kind of narcissist that people are speaking of when they speak about those abusive narcissistic relationships. We can treat this. What I would say to the man who's writing in is this. If your wife of 39 years thinks that you're narcissistic and unfeeling, telling her that she's full of it is probably not your best move. The antidote to that kind of negative image of you is the opposite of the image. Try being empathic. I'm sorry you feel like that about me. Give me some data. What have I said or done that's contributed to your feeling like that? Let's explore that. And only then is there anything I can say or do right now that might help you feel better. If you don't want her to see you as a controlling narcissist, then why don't you trade that in for an empathic partner? As Will suggests, maybe it's time to check in with an RLT therapist and learn how to do some of this.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Terry. So I have Shweta, who is here ready to ask a question. Shweta, you'll need to turn on your camera. I see you there, but you need to turn your camera on.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm outside, so just moving to a different place.
Well, the audio is not working for me either.
Shweta, can you get a little closer to the microphone?
Hello?
There
Hi.
you are.
Am I audible now?
You are. Are you able to turn your camera on? Is that an option?
Yeah, actually I'm outside, so I'm just trying to find a place where I can put the speaker on and talk. Maybe I'll go audio. Is that okay for you?
Okay, listen, we can hear you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from California. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Okay.
And
tell me your question.
Yeah, so my question is that if a codependent partner who is in a relationship with a narcissist, would you recommend that they, before even working with the narcissist to, help change them, do you recommend that they should step up into a healthy narcissism themselves and, learn to create boundaries and basically work through their own codependent nature first, and then and while doing that, just stay in a loving relationship, and then move on to see how to work with the narcissist.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Yes. If they're really sort of dyed-in-the-wool one down, you might want to work with them one-on-one for a bit before moving into the couples work. Al-Anon or ACOA are really often helpful to empower the more sort of one-down enabling one. Yeah, you want to move them in, which means that they face their fear. And here's the third fear. They face the fear. If you stand up to a partner who's in the one-up position, you are risking the relationship. You need to be clear about that. But in RLT, we don't believe in safe relationships. If you want to be safe, don't get out of bed in the morning. We believe in taking risks that are worth it. Look, if your relationship were perfectly safe, there would be no vulnerability, right? Because there's a guarantee that it's going to work out. And no, we're mortal. We're not. Life is not safe, and relationships are not safe. They're reasonably safe. But if you stand up to a narcissist, they may decide to leave. That's one of the big fears. They may get angry and attack you, hopefully not physically. And the third fear is that you'll puncture them. They'll move from inflation to deflation, from shameless to shame. And you will have hurt them, and it will be your fault. You know, this is patriarchy. The person in the one-down enabling position often feels a deep compulsion to protect the disowned fragility of the person in the one-up position. We call this the core collusion. And you have to help the latent face these fears and move into loving empowerment. Which also has to be taught, not angry, righteous empowerment, which a lot of people will be encouraged to move into, but loving empowerment. I love you. The way you're treating me makes it really hard to stay close to you. I want to be close to you. Can we please work on this together? So one of the things we teach the one-down laden is how to stand up for themselves and be loving in the same breath, which is beyond patriarchy for the woman, for the person in the traditional feminine position. Usually, the person in that position moves from either disempowerment, let me sell myself down the river and accommodate, to individual empowerment. Now I found my voice, stand back and listen to this, Buster. No, relational empowerment is just like we do in the therapy, telling the truth to your partner, but with love in your heart and skill. So we teach the one-down partner how to come up, but we do it with skill. And you can do that off to the side if you think they really need a lot of coaching before they can do it in the office, or we'll do it right in front of the blatant. But again, you have to know how to do that so the blatant doesn't scream at you. You come into the course and learn how to do that. But you're right on. The first move is to empower the latent, to stand up to the blatant. Then we move into the blatant.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Thank you, Shweta. And Alexander, we'll have you come on next. If you can unmute yourself there.
Oh, you're good. Hi, Alexander. Where are you calling from?
I'm coming from Switzerland, although I'm British. I moved here 21 years ago.
Okay, great. Tell me your thought or question.
I'm married to a beautiful woman. She's Ukrainian. She's one up, grandiose. I would say she has narcissistic traits. She was left at a creche from the age of 3, and she really struggled with that. Initially, she cried when her mother dropped her, but when her father dropped her, she stopped crying. And then as she grew, her father became alcoholic and started to hit her mother. And the only person who would stand up to her father was her. Her brother never stood up to her father, even though he was older. And
Alexander,
Yes.
forgive me. I say this with respect, but this is not really a place for me to do a consult like this.
Okay.
Tell me your question.
So the question is, she has asked for divorce, separation.
Oh,
I
sorry.
believe that she's grandiose one up. What advice would you give to someone in my position, to somebody who's one down, in that position? What kind of advice would you give?
Will she see a couple therapists with you even once?
No,
There's nothing for you to do. How long have you been married?
11 years, 2 children.
Well, I'm sorry. This is heartbreaking. I would say to you, look, I have no idea. I've never met your partner. If what you're saying is true, there's an old AA saying, and I don't mean to be glib, but sometimes rejection is God's protection, is the saying. If you are with, as much as you love her, one-up, grandiose, controlling, angry partner, maybe it would be time for you to do some therapy and ask yourself what work you need to do to be with somebody who can treat you in the ways you deserve to be treated. Talking about empowering the latent, you're the latent, I ask people to become what I call relational champions. And that means getting centered in your soul, in the conviction that being cherished and able to cherish is your birthright as a human being. And Alexander, if you're in a relationship in which you are not cherished, I believe that's not good for you, that's not good for her, the uncherishing person, and it's not good for your children. And you're better off breaking up if she can't change. So I would say there's no hope. She won't see anybody to do any work. Let her go, do your grieving, and figure out what you need to do to find yourself a partner who can cherish and love you in the ways that you and your children deserve. I can't save your marriage for you, but I can invite you to a more loving relationship in your lifetime. This may not be it. What's it like to hear me say all that?
Painful.
Deeply
painful.
I can appreciate that. I'm sorry. If there were a way to change her and make her the healthy partner you wish she would be, that would be great. And if there isn't, it may be time to let go.
I appreciate your honesty. I'm still not giving up, because I do believe it's possible. And I appreciate your honesty and your directness.
Well,
yeah.
Well, good luck. If you
Thank you.
if you can fix her, God bless. But
I
if
can't
you can't,
fix her, but what I
well,
can do is I can unconditionally love her and hold a space for her reality to collapse.
you can love her and not live with her both at the same time.
That's true.
Why, blessings
Thank
to
you. Thank
Great.
you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay, we have Lori next.
Hi,
Hi, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Israel.
Ah, okay.
Okay.
Prayers with you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. First, I want to just say, I know there's like a lot of new people who don't know you, but I just wanted to say thank you for all that you do. And my couples I work with are very grateful as well. Okay, so I have a question. When I work with a grandiose client's inner child, and if it came from disempowerment, the partner will have a lot of compassion and empathy. But if it comes from false empowerment, if that inner child was falsely empowered, I get it. I could be empathetic, but I'm having a hard time getting my partners to be the partner to be empathetic. And I'm wondering, it feels important to me, but I'm not really succeeding. And I want to know if you have any ideas, or if it is even important.
It's a tough sell, I gotta tell you. And you know, at the deepest level, you have to understand that false empowerment is a burden to the child and not a gift. It's a form of trauma. And to the degree to which you can get that through to the partner, great. I will say this. My guess is the partner will have more access to empathy if they feel that the grandiose person is getting it, and that they're being accountable and that things are getting better. They need to put it in a paycheck. They need to see that this person means business and they're really learning how to be more relational. Then they might open their heart. But I have a saying, you can't forgive what's still going on. They have to have a sense that their partner's got their arms around their own grandiosity and is really doing something about it. Then they might open their heart a little. But until they see that, it's a bridge too far to ask them to be open-hearted. Let them, they'll be empathic as they watch their partner be accountable. Otherwise, the inner child work will just feel like an excuse to them. Does that make sense to you, Lori?
Yes, it really does. Yeah, it does. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Put it in
thank
the
you.
paycheck. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Great.
Jennifer, we have you next, if you're able to come on camera.
There you go. Hi, where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Vermont.
Great. Talk to me.
Okay. I've been using some of your techniques with good results in both my own therapy practice and my own marriage to a little bit emotionally dense Aspie math genius, but we're getting there.
Okay.
But I'm also teaching younger therapists who have also been exposed to your ideas, and they will come in and they will be all ready to speak truth to power to a narcissist. But when I meet this person, I realize that this is somebody with a very thin shell of narcissism over a very chaotic and psychotic core. And this comes from my years of working in hospitals and seeing people who are truly internally chaotic having a little sort of fake my idea of normal narcissistic screen in front of how crazy they are.
Okay. So your question is?
That's a kind of narcissism you don't want to take your little needle and pop, no matter how compassionately you do it. And I'm wondering how you tell the difference between the kinds of narcissists that you talked about, the different types, and somebody where, man, you don't want to take that off, at least unless you're in a locked ward. And how do I teach that to my students?
Well, you have it through experience, obviously. Look, this is a precondition you're talking about. So if you remember, the first of the three preconditions is an untreated psychiatric disorder. So if what appears to be narcissism or selfishness or rigidity is, white knuckle defense against an underlying psychosis, obviously you're not going to disrupt that. The issue is not their narcissism, the issue is the underlying psychosis.
So you have somebody who comes into your office, sorry for interrupting, who has never been hospitalized, but you just know that's because they were born into a rich family or something. and you know this person should not be doing this kind of relational therapy in their condition. How do you tell them that?
You would have to give them data about the underlying disorganization. And this is one of the few instances where I would refer to individual therapy, a psychiatrist, medication, a full psychiatric evaluation. Don't believe me, let me connect you to somebody who can give you a full evaluation. So either outpatient or send them somewhere for a week or so. But I wouldn't try and convince them. I don't have the data of an evaluation. I would try and do an intervention to get them to do a thorough evaluation and then let that data speak for itself. And in terms of a younger therapist missing this, well, thank goodness they have you then. And your years of experience. Good?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, well.
Okay, great. We have Maria or Leslie, but Maria, did you need to find your question first? No, you're good to go. Okay, let's bring you on.
You're muted, Maria. You go down and unmute yourself. There's a picture of a mic. There you go. Another
Hi.
woman finds her. Hi, where are you calling from?
Sweden.
Oh, marvelous. Okay.
Yes.
Talk to me.
Thank you so much. So let's see. I'm a licensed psychologist. My ex-husband is the same. I'm quite recently divorced, and I've read up so much about narcissism.
Oh no. You froze for a moment. Keep going now. We missed you for a minute.
Okay. So I've read up a lot on the subjects. I've read your books, other sources. And well, in my marriage, after 15 years, I was told that my husband, had been unfaithful for seven times. He gave me 3 days and then he said, well, come on, how much are you supposed to react? 6 months after that, he told me, well, the real reason is that I'm kind of disgusting and because I'm older than he is. And after that, he was in such shame.
Maria, again, this is not the place for me to do these kind of deep consultations. Tell me
I
your
do
question.
have a question.
Yeah.
So I do have empathy.
First of all, I just want to say, human to human, I'm really sorry this happened to you. And my heart goes out to you. So that's the first thing I want to say. I'm just sorry this happened to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell me your question.
Well, I've been reactive, but like if there is this awareness and knowledge in a person, there is also wisdom. How far can you expect a person with a hell of a lot of narcissistic traits? How much can you expect from a person? When do you know when it's like, give up? Like with Alexander that you said, like, So there is couples therapy, there is expressed love and all that, but like all love is not created equally. How do you know when to give up?
I'll tell you how
Like
I
to
would do
love
it.
from afar.
I'll tell you how I would do it, and this is my whatever. I would. Is this a man or a woman or non-binary
This is
person?
my ex-husband.
Ex-husband. Will he do couples therapy with you?
He did.
But will he?
Well,
No.
yes, now he wants to, but like I've lost faith in him because
Okay.
it's been weaponized.
Okay.
It wasn't RLT. I wish we don't have that
Well,
here.
that's what. Well, but you can do Zoom. I would say if you want to give it a shot, drag him to an RLT therapist. We have RLT therapists in Europe. and give it no more than 3 months.
Right.
And I would also, just from the sounds of it, question whether your husband has some sex addiction issues, ex-husband.
Yeah. There was.
So I drag him to an RLT therapist, and an RLT therapist will bring this to a head relatively quickly, and your ex will either be willing to work or not. And based on whether they're really willing to work, not lip service or
Right.
not, depends on whether you're interested in staying there or not.
Yeah.
But
So
very
then
short.
there is a problem of me wanting to do the training. So
Well, you can do the training with or without them. We have courses for the general public on healthy self-esteem, relational skills,
no, but like
boundaries.
I'm a psychologist, so licensed psychologist, so I would be going for the big shebang. But
Yeah. Well, come and train in
so
RLT.
yeah.
And I guess I would say the same to you that I said to the gentleman before. If your ex rises to the occasion and does the work, which I think is highly doubtful, then miracle of miracles. That work might, by the way, include a stay in rehab and some intensive treatment. If he doesn't really want to rise to the occasion and do the work, then let go, do your grieving, and go find a more worthy partner. Before I was a therapist, I was in comparative literature, and an old French critic said sentimentality was the expenditure of worthy emotions on unworthy objects.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir.
Go find yourself a worthy object.
Thank you.
Blessings. Blessings to all of you who joined us today. Thank you, Will. And I hope to see all 11,000 of you in our course in October.
Thanks, Terry. And so for everyone, I'll put up that sales slide again to leave us off with so you can get the URL if you didn't already. And Griselda, if you could put that in the chat one more time would be great. Terry, I know you've got to jump, you've got a busy schedule, but I know that there are some logistics questions that people have, so I'm going to answer a few of those here just for a minute or two because I have another call as well. But I want to leave you with your answers right away. If I don't happen to cover your question, please do email us, support@terryreal.com. We've got all the answers. No, not really. Just the answers.
What's the meaning of life, Will? All right, I got to go. Thank you, everybody. Hope to see you in October. Thank you, Will.
So for everyone, some of the logistics questions, I had someone ask, if you're looking at certification, would taking this course count towards the cost of certification? And the answer is yes. If you take this course, it will count towards the cost of certification. And I love that you're already thinking of certification before even taking the course. That's fantastic. Is there a certificate for this course? Was someone else's question. We don't have a certificate specifically for this course. We do for our full certification. For this course, we do have the CEUs that are available, but that is only if you need the CEUs, and that comes with its own separate certificate. Recordings, yes, there'll be a recording of this class and all the classes that Terry's doing, as well as the Q&A sessions. And another question, one was a personal one, and one was from a coach. If I'm a coach, how can I use this work? That's a fantastic question. So earlier I said that I'm a normal person, but what I meant was I'm just not a therapist. I am a coach. I'm a coach and an energy healer, and I use this work with my clients all the time. It looks very different in a one-on-one scenario. You have to find other ways to bring in the other people in the room, so to speak, because you're not necessarily working with a couple, but it's absolutely applicable. And joining through the truth still happens in a one-on-one scenario. So even if you're a coach working one-on-one with clients, it's still very helpful information to have, if not sometimes the most important information, because in my experience working with a coach, sometimes you just know you have that inkling in the back of your mind of, man, there's something going on here. And if they could just change this thing, then all that other great coaching we did would work. Often, or sometimes in my experience, it's grandiosity. So if you have better ways of joining through the truth lovingly, that confrontation with that client, your results do improve. And then the last question that I'll address Someone asked, could a client with a grandiose mother benefit from the class? She's working with her mother in other therapy. I would very, what's the word? Broadly say yes. And I'm glad that they're already in other therapy, because as we outlined, we're not going to be doing deep or, we don't have the space to do those kinds of deep dive sessions on personal matters, but the concepts will still be very, very helpful. Just going to take one last look in the chat and see if there are any last logistics questions. Note there are no CEs for today's webinar. The dates of the classes here, let me put up, I'll put up the dates one more time, and then I'll put up the final sales slide. Sorry, I have to jump through these again.
I have good news and bad.
There we go, sorry. There we go. Here are the dates of the main classes. And here are the dates of the Q&A calls. This is also all on the sales page. So why don't I just skip to that one? And you can go there and get all that wonderful information. So www.relationallife.com/grandiosity. Okay, thank you everyone so much for being here. Again, if you have any questions, email us support@terrorreal.com, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. And I look forward to seeing you in the course. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye for now.